What Erling Haaland did versus Napoli shows the risks he will take in new Man City, roll Manchester City, beat Napoli 2-0 in the Champions League, with Erling Haaland netting another landmark goal. Kevin De Bruyne must feel like nothing has changed at the Etihad. He last played here in May, when he was substituted as a sacrifice following a red card for the team. Roll on 4 months and, wearing a deeper shade of blue, he was taken off as the team looked to reorganise following a red. Except this time he was taken off before half-time, and, to the relief of Hugo Viana and everyone else in the most important seats in the stadium, hadn't been able to influence the game. Napoli had lost their right back with the game still goalless when Antonio Conte moved to shore his defence up. That Giovanni Di Lorenzo was shown his marching orders was down in no small part to Erling Haaland. First for forcing the foul as the last man on the edge of the box, but then also for protesting so adamantly to the referee that he animatedly waved an imaginary red card in the air before the official was advised by VAR to go over to the screen and have another look. That wasn't the only time Haaland risked getting on the wrong side of the referee. When Matteo Politano was given a yellow card for holding back Jeremy Doku in the second half, Manchester City's number 9 motioned to Felix Zweier to get on with it as City searched for the first goal. It did, however, show more evidence of the conviction that Haaland has started the season with as he embraces a leadership role in the team. Gone is the confused striker who gave up the chance to score a penalty in the FA Cup final, replaced by someone with an urgency to get his team winning. There is a marked difference, and that is what everyone watching City this season is looking for. How much have they put the slip in standards of the last year behind them? Early defeats to Spurs and Brighton showed that they have not completely banished their demons, and mean any verdicts have to be premature. It has undeniably been a promising couple of days at the Etihad after the derby win. It's easy to say that Ederson may not have saved the header from Sam Buchema midway through the first half against Napoli, as City gave up another chance, when Gianluigi Donnarumma read it right and got behind it. Then again, soft goals past Ederson were a feature of the wretched Champions League run last year. Again, is it hindsight to say that there was something off about City from the very start of their Champions League run last year? That wasn't just wearing that ghastly Oasis-inspired kit at home. They would win their next 2 before the collapses started, but there was a sense in their opener against Inter 12 months ago that the two teams were happy with a draw in a way that you rarely see from a Guardiola side. Haaland was the most impatient man on the pitch against Napoli, and it paid off when City's best player on the night, Phil Foden, superbly set him up to head in his 6th of the season and 50th Champions League goal on his 49th appearance in the competition. To have that record already with such a ceiling to improve is scary. That is what Haaland is determined to do though, and he was happy to take a risk in order to help City to win. There may be work to do for all, but the last few days have been perfect to tee up Sunday's difficult trip to Arsenal. Manchester City injury latest as Blues get huge boost but 4 set to miss Napoli and Arsenal showdowns. Manchester City injury news ahead of the Champions League tie with Napoli on Thursday night. Pep Guardiola's side then take on Arsenal at the Emirates on Sunday afternoon. Manchester City have been handed a significant injury boost with the sight of John Stones training ahead of the Champions League tie with Napoli. The England defender missed the weekend derby win over Manchester United with a muscle injury sustained while on international duty. But he was part of the training group on Wednesday as City trained ahead of the meeting with the Serie A champions. Calvin Phillips was also among the squad, but a clutch of senior players remained sidelined ahead of the Champions League opener with Napoli on Thursday night and the subsequent Premier League trip to Arsenal on Sunday. Here's the injury latest from the Etihad. Marmoush suffered an injury in the 4th minute of Egypt's goalless draw with Burkina Faso on Tuesday. He tried to carry on, but was withdrawn 5 minutes later. He returned to Cairo on crutches and underwent a scan in Egypt to assess the extent of the damage. City have now confirmed the 26-year-old will miss the derby, but expect him to return to action in the coming weeks. "We have to make the last tests," said Guardiola of the forward. "A few weeks. Before the international break, he will be ready." Teehee. France international is sidelined for 2 months after picking up a thigh injury. It could result in Turkey missing 10 matches with the forward absent for the defeat to Brighton last time out. Ait Nouri suffered an ankle injury in the early stages of his home debut against Tottenham. The £31 million summer signing from Wolves played against Brighton, but did not join up with the Algeria squad for their World Cup qualifiers against Botswana and Guinea. Guardiola confirmed the left-back will miss the game against United. The midfielder is out until October with the Achilles injury that he had surgery on this summer. Kovacic went under the knife shortly after the season finished, missing the Club World Cup and the rest of pre-season, with the hope that he would be able to be fit around the start of the new campaign. But he is now set to be absent until at least the October international break. Pep Guardiola and Gianluigi Donnarumma press conference, live injury updates and team news. Manchester City face Napoli in the Champions League on Thursday night, with Kevin De Bruyne set to return to the Etihad. Hello, and welcome to our live coverage of Pep Guardiola's Manchester City press conference ahead of the Champions League tie with Napoli. The Blues begin their European campaign with a visit from the Serie A champions, who will have City legend Kevin De Bruyne in their ranks. The Belgian left the Etihad in the summer, having not been offered a new contract, and subsequently signed for Napoli. De Bruyne will get a warm reception when he returns to Manchester, but Pep Guardiola and City fans will be hoping he ends the night on the losing side. The Blues chief will face the media this lunchtime and will no doubt be asked about De Bruyne and his legacy at City. Guardiola will also provide a team news and injury update ahead of the game with John Stones and Rayan Aït-Nouri, the main question marks after both missed the weekend derby win over Manchester United. Manchester City face Arsenal dilemma before Champions League game with Napoli. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola will have to think about what he wants from Arsenal before moving on to Napoli-Manchester City, and Arsenal meet for the first time in the Premier League this season in similar circumstances to the last, only with some key points reversed. The first is who will be expected to win the game, with Arsenal now clear ahead of City given the drop in standards at the Etihad last year. The second, informing the first, is that the game will be played at the Emirates, where Arsenal won 5-1 last season, rather than in Manchester, where the points were shared. The third relates to the Champions League. Both have their first European night of the season to navigate before they lock horns again to renew their very modern rivalry. Last year, City firmly held the advantage, with their home game against Inter coming the day before Arsenal were away at Atalanta, and then had to travel up to Manchester once they returned. It's a rubbish situation for any Premier League game, never mind one of the bigger ones. The Blues have it similarly bad this year. Arsenal play in Bilbao on Tuesday night, but will be back in North London on Wednesday, well over a day before City host Italian champions Napoli at the Etihad on Thursday. Friday will be a recovery day, Saturday will be travel. So when and how exactly does Pep Guardiola prepare a side for Arsenal? Poorly, is the answer that nobody wants but everyone will have to accept. It won't be how anyone at City wants it, but it is the reality of modern football, where the calendar is so bloated that all teams playing in multiple competitions, and it is all teams, before any of them start whining about being excluded, are routinely stuffed. Managers like to insist on taking one game at a time, but in such circumstances it simply isn't possible. Guardiola has to be thinking about what he wants his team at Arsenal to look like before the Napoli game, how much influence that has on the Napoli game, and whether it means anybody that would ordinarily start against Napoli is saved for Arsenal, is down to the manager. But it has to at least be a consideration before a Champions League ball has been kicked. Arteta, to an extent, must have had some of the same thoughts, even with more days to prepare. Do you prioritise the league game because it feels like it is more important to the season, or trust that a good result in the Champions League, where there are fewer matches left to recover the situation if you lose, is more significant for the bigger picture of building momentum in all competitions? That is the dilemma for Guardiola on Wednesday and Thursday before he picks his team for Napoli. Which players are used and how many changes there are between the games may give an indication of who the manager sees as integral to his team right now. Manchester City given chance to end 29-month concern after training change. Manchester City head into a big week with fixtures against Napoli and Arsenal that will reveal more about how good Pep Guardiola's side are. It remains unclear why Manchester City were training at the Etihad before the Manchester derby, but it is no secret that it is no longer the home it once was for them. It is less than 12 months since Pep Guardiola's side boasted one of the longest home unbeaten runs English football has seen, but things have fallen off quickly. Tottenham became the first team in more than 2 years to beat City at the Etihad when they won there in November 2024, and they picked up the 3 points with a battering. The Blues had started well, but somehow conspired to lose 4-0 against one of their bogey teams, shattering their proud home record at the end of an evening where they had celebrated Rodri becoming the first City player to win the Ballon d'Or. City's slide from the best in the world to wildly inconsistent was alarmingly quick, with Ruben Amorim's dismal United side beating them at the Etihad the week after that Spurs defeat. Pep Guardiola's side were generally stronger at home than they were away, but Real Madrid and Liverpool still proved too good for them on home soil, and their start to this Premier League campaign was spoiled by Spurs again, as Thomas Frank's team won 2-0. As much as the defeats have stacked up, the absence of victories is significant as well. From the final 2 months of the treble season, where Liverpool, Arsenal, Bayern and Real Madrid were all humbled at the Etihad, it is arguable that City haven't beaten an elite team since, even containing the year where they won their 4th Premier League title in a row. City haven't beaten Liverpool or Arsenal for 2 years and have failed to win against Real Madrid twice and Inter as well as Feyenoord in that time. They did beat Aston Villa in April 2025 and Chelsea and Newcastle earlier in the year. But in terms of direct rivals for the Premier League or Champions League, the victories have been missing.